I did hit it.
Section.
Right. Here
We're here.
we are.
We're here. We're here. So Nina and I were just having a
That was
wonderful
my bad.
conversation.
Yeah, that was my bad, folks. Sorry about that.
So let's rewind. We don't need to rewind. Nina and I had a really good conversation. What did we talk about, Nina?
Mhm. So we were talking about the significance of this particular day and how blessed I feel to be here on this day because this is the day that the Armenian genocide is commemorated. And you were about to tell me, because that happened over a period of time. So you were about to tell me why this particular day was chosen for this and what is significant. What happened on this day that makes this so significant?
Okay. Apologize to everybody. We started late. We were gabbing away, and Nina, both of we both had the same sense. It's like it is an honor that this happens to be the day that I get to talk to Nina on this. You know, April 24th this year happens to fall on a Wednesday, and it happens to be Nina on the schedule, and that's not an accident, right? It's just
Happens.
it, right? And we both, prior to it, and she acknowledged that she had
Mhm.
that same sensation, like what an honor, and it is an honor. And
Mhm.
so,
Mhm.
um, one of my pushes, as I was explaining to Nina before we hit record, is to bring this holiday into the mind, and I'll put it on the calendar of Christians globally, not just Armenians, not just Armenian
Mhm.
Christians, but April 24th from this day forward. Part of my push in my project will be that Christians have this day on their calendar to recognize the
Mhm.
beginning of the Christian Holocaust, the Christian
Mhm.
Holocaust that was copied in World War II and made a Jewish Holocaust, right? It was
Mhm.
copied. The Jewish Holocaust was a copy of the Christian Holocaust that began on April 24th. So Christians globally should acknowledge this day, not just
Mhm.
Armenians. So what
Mhm.
happened on April 24th, 1915? World War I had begun roughly a year to 8 months. The 8 months to a year. Let's see, World War I began. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was kind of the inciting incident. I think that was June 28th, and then declaration of war. Uh, Maybe it was a different day in June, but like July, about a month later, and then in August and September, the different nations started declaring war, right? So World War I ramped up at the end of June, July, August, and the Ottoman Empire ended up joining the war around, I think it's October or November. And
Mhm.
so
The
these
28th of July, by the way.
of July, that's it. So
Yeah.
the assassination of Archduke or the beginning of the war.
Uh, that it's counting this as the beginning of the war.
All right, so yeah, June 28th or 29th was the assassination of the Archduke, and then things ramped up, and war within a month was declared, and then at the time nobody really thought it was going to be a world war. They thought it'll be, because there had been two Balkan wars in 1912 and again in
Mhm.
1913, or yeah, in 1913, and they were short wars, like a couple months each of them. And so in that part of the world where this happened is where the Balkan wars were. When the
Mhm.
assassination, everybody thought, okay, it's just the third Balkan war, it'd be another regional skirmish. Lo and
Mhm.
behold, it becomes the great conflagration. So the Ottoman Empire had no real business being in this war, except that the Russian Empire had picked a side, and that was the number one enemy of the Ottoman Empire. So when the Ottoman Empire joined the war, they weren't a great military power, but Germany was their ally, and Germany had been in the war, or had declared war. So what happened was, yeah, I mean, um, the powers that be in the Ottoman Empire took it upon themselves to eliminate a perceived enemy within, a perceived
Mhm.
enemy within their borders. For generations, the ethnic conflict and the religious conflict between Armenians, Greeks, Assyrians, and the Turks, right? There's Armenians, Greeks, and Assyrians on one side, and then the Turks on the other side, or Christians on one side, and the
Mhm.
Muslim on the other. The Ottoman Empire was a Muslim nation. The Russian Empire was a Christian nation at the time, right? And so that is
Mhm.
essential to the conflict. Today, people and historians and even Armenians are downplaying the religious side of this, and it's like, how do you exclude that? How do you can't downplay it? It was Christians that were targeted. It wasn't
Mhm.
that they were
Mhm.
another ethnicity. I mean, that was part of it, but there were Kurds that were targeted and Kurds that weren't targeted.
Mhm.
So there's 5 basic ethnicities. There's other ethnicities, but there's Turks, Armenians, Greeks, Assyrians, and Kurds. And Kurds were half Christian, half Muslim, right? And it was just the
Mhm.
Christian half of the Kurds that were targeted. So that,
Right.
dispels any of that nonsense. Oh, it wasn't really Muslim versus Christian. It was absolutely. But some people emphasize, oh no, it was greed and geopolitical, blah blah blah. I'm like, both can be true, right? It's like, yes, because greed is sinful and evil and
Mhm.
satanic, right? So it is. So um, on April 24th, it was essentially what you might be analogous to in World War II, Kristallnacht. Do you know what Kristallnacht
Mhm. I
was?
do. I do.
Explain what's Kristallnacht.
Kristallnacht was the night, and crystal has to do with the glass that was shattered in so many businesses and shop windows when the German, I guess what it was, the SS or the brown shirts
Yep.
came through, smashing all the businesses of the Jews.
And um, also the like the leadership in the government were targeted. The
Mhm.
opposition to uh, that evil leader. You can't. It's Hitler. We can say it.
Mhm.
Um, he had his opposition assassinated. Right? They
Mhm.
went and they
Mhm.
gathered up leaders and with knives. The Night of Long
Mhm.
Knives. They they
Mhm.
they disposed of high-ranking and influential opposing voices.
Right.
Just took them out in an orchestrated, coordinated effort in one night. Well, April 24th was that night for the Armenians in World War One. It was
Mm.
politicians that had been elected to office in the Ottoman Empire, because the Ottoman Empire had become a representative republic. It had become
Mhm.
a democracy, a republic with a constitution, and this was the end of that. And it had only been a
Mhm.
few years that it had adopted it, but it was shrewd political gamesmanship, taking
Mhm.
out your opposition. Um, a list of 250 names of influential Armenians had been given to Talat Pasha. At the time, he
Mhm.
was the Minister of the Interior, the most powerful position. Uh, the Grand Vizier is like the president or the prime minister, and that's the technical head. But certain
Mhm.
positions in the government are more powerful than others. And the Minister of the Interior is the guy who has in charge of your transportation, infrastructure, population, etc. The guy who
Mhm.
has charge over the people, and that was Talat's
Mhm.
position. He did rise to become Grand Vizier in the middle of the war, but this was his play, his power play. He got a list of 250 names of Armenian intellectuals, like poets, politicians, a priest who was actually he was known as like the most famous singer. You'd think like a rock star, right? But it was a priest, and he was taking ancient Armenian songs and modernizing them, right? So it was popular music
Mhm.
in the Armenian community. A guy named Komitas. They took bankers, lawyers, actors, all the most influential on this list of 250 names of Armenians. They were rounded up from their homes and put on trains and sent to their deaths. There were survivors, but this was
Mhm.
a brutal, like April 24th was that night when they were rounded up.
Just you saying that sounds like it's something out of World War II, not World War One. Most people don't associate anything like this with World War One.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Right. This is a suppressed history. It's
Mhm.
been actively suppressed for over 100 years. We're at
And still is.
and
Yeah.
still is. So 109 years in, it is still suppressed. Erdogan of Turkey just issued a statement. It's like, oh, Armenians, we'll have peace with you. Just stop this nonsense about fabricating history, right? This fabrication of this thing that happened. Because Armenians just want, not just, but Armenians want the nation of Turkey to acknowledge what they did, like Germany acknowledged what they did. To this day, Turkey officially denies it. But the
Right.
people, the average Turk, your average Turk within the interior of Turkey, there's a huge proportion of them that know. They're like, wait,
Oh,
these are
sure.
these inscriptions on this old stone that obviously came from some other building, but that we've used in our building to build our structure. They demolished churches and monasteries, etc., and graveyards. There's all this Armenian writing, and if you go into Turkey and you travel, you'll see, wait, that's interesting writing. It looks
Mhm.
out of place.
Mhm.
It's Armenian, and the Turks within, they know. It's just the
Yeah.
government that is continuing to suppress it, and the United States is complicit in Germany. So
True.
April 24th is the day that began, and so as a result, the whole month of April every year is kind of the high holy month for Armenians. It's
Mhm.
there every weekend, just about every night of the month. And as you get into the month, the more the events happen. There are gatherings, there are commemorations, there are monuments where they have meetings, and the priests come out, the leaders, and I've been to several of them already. And my event on April 17th was, for me, it's significant that happened in the middle of the month, that first meeting at an Armenian Apostolic Church, being welcomed there and being embraced by the community. It's a significant moment.
Mhm.
So when you say that sounds like things that happened, I can list a number of things that people think that Hitler came up with. This video is now going to
Mhm.
get flagged because I've said that word twice. Well, let me tell you something.
You can call him Adolf.
Yeah, Adolf. Oh gosh. So, my website, assassinsaint.com.
Mhm.
So I have a couple of websites dedicated to this. So SogomonTellurian.com goes to one, but assassinsaint.com is the new one. It's the one we're emphasizing, the one we're
Mhm.
pushing and spreading the word. So I was on my work computer yesterday,
Mhm.
and I was wanting to check updates. I want to see, oh, so the guy who handles the website has updated the website. I'm going to go look and see how it looks. So, I haven't looked at it. I look at it on my phone, but I'm like, I haven't looked at it on a computer yet. And I'm like, I turned to my desktop computer at work and I put it in, and we're behind a firewall at work. And so
Mhm.
they have things in place that normal computer wouldn't have. And I put it up, and it says the website you're going to has been blocked, or because of objectionable content. It has a continue button that you can continue to the website. I'm like,
Mhm.
and I'm like, I clicked it and I went to it, and then I went back, and I'm like, oh, have I now done something at work that it's going to be flagged, and the work's going to say, why do you look into, why is Adolf Hitler on your list of things to researching, etc. Right? It's just,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it feels like that the cancel culture, or the policing of our language and information today in our country,
Mhm. Mhm.
is a continuation of the genocide. It is the suppression of history. To to
Mhm.
to flag websites that talk about accurate history is preventing people from learning that accurate history. And
Mhm.
so it's like, okay,
And just to show, because I looked a little bit of this up yesterday, and I just want to show how political this actually is. This holiday is only observed or recognized in Armenia, the state of California, Canada, France, and Argentina, not in the United States, not in England, not in a lot of the places that you would expect it to be. And one of the interesting things to me as I was looking this up was that They were talking about who has recognized it and why. And it said, in 2021, US President Joe Biden recognized the genocide on the 24th of April, fulfilling a campaign pledge. However, back I think in 1975, uh, it went to the House and the Senate. They were actually going to pass a motion and so forth, and then they didn't. Um, the president at the time, Ford, vetoed it because he didn't want to upset Turkey, who was an ally.
And that is, in a nutshell, what has been happening over the past 109 years. Thank
Mhm,
you, actually, for that, Nina. As you listed those places, regions that do acknowledge it, the April 24th, Argentina, Canada, California, France.
mhm,
Huge, huge, huge Armenian populations in all of those
mhm, mhm,
places. California, Glendale in particular, has the largest concentration of Armenians outside of Armenia,
mhm,
with the exception maybe of Russia, because there's a lot of Armenians in Russia because it's Armenia straddled the Russian Empire and the Ottoman Empire, which is partly
mhm,
why this is such a significant conflict. Is in the declaration of war in World War One by the Ottoman Empire siding with Germany, it split Armenia in half. I mean, they'd been split in half for a few centuries because of the
mhm,
Russian and Ottoman differences, but that pitted brother against brother. It was literally Armenians in the military on one side and Armenians in the military on the other side, right on that
wow,
border.
wow,
Except in the Ottoman Empire, the Armenians were, when they were conscripted into the Ottoman Empire's military, they were essentially put into labor camps and starved to death, right?
mm,
Armenians
mhm,
knew that if they, in certain regions, they understood that it was a virtual death sentence to be conscripted. And so, right prior to the
mhm,
war, I mean, this is the atmosphere prior to the war was young men approaching that date on the calendar, their birthday, the 18th birthday, would leave the country. And that was
mhm,
the case with Soghomon. His mother said, "It's time for you to go. I have it in the script. It's time for you to go. You have to leave
mhm.
home. You have to go join your brothers, your older brothers, and your father and your uncle in, across the border." So, you can get me going on this. So it was interesting when Biden signed that. So every president for the last several
Mhm,
decades have put
mhm,
in their platform, we're going to remember the Armenian genocide. Even Trump, right? He even, and it just didn't happen. It's because of political pressure. And you mentioned
mhm,
Turkey pressuring
mhm,
Gerald Ford in the United States in the 70s. Well, it started in 1933.
mhm,
1933 was the first time that I'm aware of that the government of Turkey put pressure on the United States. In
mhm,
1933, MGM Studios, big studio at the time, it was, I don't know, maybe the number one studio at the time, had a production, had a project, a film in production that was focused on a particular event in the Armenian genocide. Musa Dag was this incredible defensive stance that a small group of Armenians took against a larger army, and they were on the coast and they were eventually rescued, etc. And it's this dramatic rescue. And MGM, like, this is a great story, and a book had been written about it, and the movie was going to be based on that book. And it was like they were in production. I don't know what stage, but the State Department of Turkey in 1933, prior to World War II, right?
mhm,
Prior
mhm,
to World War II, like, the State Department of Turkey reaches out to the State Department of the United States and says, if you want to maintain diplomatic relations with us, you will shut down this production, this Hollywood production. The government interfering with commerce, with independent
mhm,
production, and
mhm.
they did it. MGM was the production was scrapped, and because of that, the Americans don't know, right? From that
Right,
day forward, nobody knows anything about this. The
and
only
that was the point. That was the
exa
whole point of doing it.
Yep. Using that, political power to
Mhm,
suppress, and that is actually the continuation of genocide. That's one of the categories. If you look
mm,
up the word genocide, it's not just a word with one definition. Genocide, under the Genocide Convention established by Raphael Lemkin in 1944 through 46, if you look it up, there's like 5 different categories, and one of those, they're not categories. It's there's stages. There's aspects to what a genocide is. It's not just killing people. It's not just removing them from their land. It's actually erasing from the historic record that they ever existed. A genocide isn't just to remove people that you don't like or inconvenience. It's to remove from knowledge, right? Remove
Memory.
that
Yeah.
period.
Mhm.
Face it, there are peoples in the past that we don't know about, that we will never know about, because they disappeared, one reason or another, whether it was 2 tribes fighting each other and one massacred the other, and that was a genocide of a little tribe, and that history will never be known. Well, Armenia is the first Christian nation. This is not a culture that should be erased. Right?
Right.
And I think that's the problem with that the Ottoman Empire had, is that they went up against God's people. And so there was a partial success, right? The Turkish Armenians were removed from their lands, and the majority of them were massacred. But you didn't get them all, and if you don't get them all, you can't. It's not a. It's a failure, right? It's a failed genocide, just like Hitler failed, right? It was a partial, and it's not something that can be accomplished. And my project is going to, I believe, the reversal, right? These are dramatic and compelling events. It's like, when I tell them to you, you're like, how come I didn't know this, right? You're like, this is, I didn't know this at this point in my life.
We are not taught this in school. Even when you study history and you're studying about World War I and World War II, you are never told about this. Except maybe one brief line.
Right.
Yeah, and they don't call it genocide, usually.
Yeah. And partly because, or I think primarily because, it's Christians being targeted. To this day, when Christians are targeted, Christians are the number 1 targets on the planet to this day around the world. There are more Christians being martyred in hostile regions than any other group, right? And so it is a spiritual war, a spiritual battle that's taking place. And I happen to have a story that's like a bomb that's going to go off and detonate. And I honestly believe that the Sogomon story is the kill switch for denialism. Right? That's a phrase I just now coined. The kill switch for denialism. Denialism is what we're talking about, the oppression or the suppression of the story. Denialism is a phase of genocide, right? Suppress it, continue to suppress it over time. The genocide that we talk about in World War I, that was just a phase of genocide. It is still happening actively. And the Sogomon story, and my involvement is going to reverse that as it moves forward. All right, we're out of time. I know we started a little bit late. You and I got some one-on-one time before we hit record.
Yeah, sorry about that, everybody. And that was my mistake. Michael asked me to press the button, and I thought I had, but it didn't take. Sorry.
Well, it was meant to be. I got a lot going on today. I do have to work, but I'm going to be sitting in a webinar from 10 o'clock on, listening into some influential Armenian talk. And then at 4:30, I'm going to an event in Glendale. And then at 6, I'm going to an event at the Archdiocese, the Western Archdiocese of the Armenian Apostolic Church. So I'm busy. All right. Love you all. And I will hit end stream
All right.
there.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.